Welcome to the Plant-Centered and Thriving Podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Kitchens. What's up, Plant-Centered fam? Welcome back, or welcome to the podcast. We are so thrilled and thankful that you are here today. Today, we have a very unique episode for you. So recently, a couple weeks ago, Katie and I had a booth at our local Veg Fest here in Durham, North Carolina. And one thing we wanted to do was interview people on the podcast, because what a better space than a Veg Fest to interview a bunch of like-minded people who are plant-based, vegetarian, reducitarian. Someone identified that, which I thought was wonderful, or vegan, and just get some feedback on why did they choose this journey or this eating style out of all the different ways that we can eat in the world. Why this one? So bear with us. The audio, it's definitely like noisy. There were 70 plus vendors there. It was wild. There was such a great turnout. We were just so grateful with the amount of people that stopped by, said hi. If you're listening to this, thank you. If you did that, if you were able to do that, thank you so much for coming by and saying hi. We so appreciate you. And we're just very, very thankful for this community. So like I said, it was definitely a little loud, and the mic I was using wasn't like top notch. So the audio is not the best quality, but bear with us, because I will say every single person had their own reason for transitioning to whatever it is that they are doing for a very particular purpose. And we even interviewed some kids, and hearing them speak on why they were vegetarian or vegan was such a beautiful thing. I'm really looking forward to you listening to this and just hearing why so many people have embarked on this journey and how it's meaningful to them. We also not only asked them why they went vegan, vegetarian, etc., but also if they had a piece of advice for someone who's thinking about transitioning, what they would say. So there's a lot of just great information here from that perspective as well, because we interviewed people who were a couple months into their journey and people who were 20 plus years into their journey. So join me in welcoming so many amazing people from the Durham, North Carolina Veg Fest, and hear them share their story with you. What made you become plant-based?
There's a lot of factors in that, predominantly my wife, but also the environment, and I love animals.
Do you have a piece of advice for someone who's thinking about transitioning to plant-based eating?
Don't hesitate, just start your journey. You can always get better, take the plunge and just go for it.
And how long has it been?
It's about 2 months now.
So how's it going?
It's easier than I thought it'd be, actually. When I did it, I actually focused a lot on like my cultural roots and what my ancestors ate that was plant-based. And I find that I really like those tastes, so yeah, I've grown adjusted to it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So what piece of advice would you have for someone who's transitioning to veganism right now?
There are so many cultures all over the world that eat plant-based diets. I would recommend taking lessons from countries like India and Mexico and Vietnam, where their flavor comes from the plants, really, not necessarily animals.
Yep, absolutely. Do you have any advice for someone who's thinking about transitioning to vegetarianism or veganism?
Yeah, sure. I think many people wanted to become a vegetarian or vegan, but they feel that there's very limited options. Believe me, I travel around the world and I always find a lot of options for vegetarian and vegan, plant-based. Here itself, we have thousands of options. So I think, yes, just give a try. It's healthy. It's awesome.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
I became vegan mainly for environmental reasons. I kind of realized, especially in high school, when we started learning a lot more about climate change and kind of the impacts of our food choices and just our general everyday choices, I realized I couldn't save the world, but it's nice to know that every day, like, I can help an animal somewhere and you know, and save a lot of things like energy and water. And I think vegan cooking is just like such an awesome cuisine, and I think it sparks so much really cool innovation of trying to create really important culinary moments with things that people don't necessarily think are good tasting or nice looking, and I think it's just such a really cool movement and a really cool space. A tip I have of veganism is that it's not about perfection. Yeah, it's just about being a little kinder whenever you can.
I went vegan for more of like a personal challenge. I just wanted to kind of see if I could do it. And then I started reading more into it and realized it had all of these great health benefits of eating low on the food chain and also for the environment and a lot of other things. So that kind of confirmed me wanting to be vegan. And I guess like a piece of advice, I would say like, you don't have to eat like the vegan versions of non-vegan foods to be a vegan. Stick with like lentils and like the more like eating low on the food chain kind of stuff instead of your ultra processed vegan foods.
So Scott, what made you become vegan?
So the journey started out in November, right before the Thanksgiving season of 1999. So I was listening to an online radio broadcast, not a podcast, an actual broadcast. This originated out of Seattle. And this host decided to bring up something to expose hypocrisy in his listeners and his callers. And what's funny is this broadcast had no animal rights or vegan element to it whatsoever, nothing. The sole purpose was to show how people are hypocritical when it comes to how they feel about the companion non-human species, cats and dogs, but total hypocrisy about how they see other species. So what he did is on this broadcast went on and set his premise pretending, it wasn't real, but he was pretending that he had plans that weekend to go to his local animal shelter, apply for and bring home a puppy or kitten or several, kill them, and cook them as food. And then he took calls. From that moment, the excuses that came in from people and the vitriol that he was getting, and this was by design, he was trying to expose something. And I was just floored by what I was hearing as those calls rolled in to that talk show host. And after I heard that broadcast and shut down, it started the thought process. So in my own mind, I started thinking to myself, okay, I love my cats very much. They were Neo and Jasmine at the time. They were a pair of tabbies. I adored them. And I adore animals generally, and yet I was bringing home packs of turkey and chicken, whatever it might be. And I began in my own mind what could be described as a desperate search to try to justify this. So I'm asking myself, it's like, why am I doing this? So I spent, if I remember correctly, probably the next 2 weeks in self-reflection and thought, trying to figure it out. And I came to the conclusion. I literally stepped outside myself and talked to myself. I had a self-meeting and said, look, you're not going to find a solution to this that leaves you consistent and with your integrity, because there isn't one. This is hypocrisy at its purest levels.
My piece of advice would be take it slow. There's no rush. If you want to transition at your own pace, like you're not trying to compare yourself with anybody else, it's your journey.
What made you kind of start that transition?
Mostly just trying to become more conscious of where all the food comes from, not just meat, but also vegetables, and really understanding that we're just a part of this planet, and everything that we put in our bodies is also part of the planet. So getting closer to actually the source of those things and understanding who the farmers are, where is the food coming from, how does it integrate into my body, is really important for me to understand this, and naturally I just drift towards a more plant-based and more conscious diet, a lot of vegetables and a lot of fruits and nuts and seeds and a lot of lentils and legumes. So I would just say forget about what anybody else says, listen inside and figure out what you need, and if what you need is not plant-based, that's totally fine, but figure out what you need inside.
What made you become vegan?
So when I was 16, I saw a slaughterhouse footage that was shared to me by my friends, who were very into politics and debate. They basically had a debate with me as to why I was consuming animal like byproducts and flesh, and I could not find a suitable argument to defend myself, so I immediately transitioned to vegetarianism. 2 years later, after many more debates and things, I realized that the reasons I'd become vegetarian was to do it for the animals, and those 2 years I was essentially funding the exact same institution through the consumption of the byproducts of the same animals that were suffering for the meat, for the flesh. And so I just went hard vegan. I feel like if I had more information, if I'd been more informed, I would have made the transition much sooner, considering the industry works so hard to hide this information from people. So, I mean, right now, you know, the information's out there. If people care and have empathy for other living sentient beings that live on the planet, they should definitely just sort of look at the information, look at the industry practices, and make a decision themselves of whether that morally agrees with them.
What piece of advice would you give to someone who's thinking about transitioning? If they were kind of like where you were at 16 years old, what advice would you give to them?
Okay, so there's this guy called Emperor Palpatine from Star Wars. He would literally just say, do it.
Yes, I love it. Okay, I'm at the Veg Fest with Dr. Judy. Dr. Judy, what made you go plant-based?
So I've been plant-based about 7 years ago, and primarily it was for health reasons. I had acne and GI issues, and it was my mom actually that told me that if I cut out dairy, that would go away. And of course, your mom, they always say she's right, and she was right. So I basically haven't looked back since. It took me a while to transition, but now I'm fully plant-based, loving the lifestyle, and now I teach other people how to transition to a healthy plant-based diet.
What piece of advice would you give someone who is thinking about going plant-based?
I would say identify your motivation for going plant-based, because that will help you to stick to it when you feel discouraged, or maybe your family and friends aren't supporting you. And then also I would say take it one step at a time. Don't compare your journey to anyone else. Your journey is unique. You can go as fast or as slow as you like, and you can go as much as you like. You don't have to be 100% vegan, you know, but any way towards that direction is better for the planet, for your health, and for the environment.
Okay, that's the Plant-Based MD on Instagram. You have to follow her. She's amazing. Thank you, Dr. Judy.
I've been vegan for 12 years now. I read a book back in the day that pretty much just pointed out in the society we live in, we vote with our dollars, and that's kind of our only option in terms of like voicing our opinion in certain ways. It's one of the best ways we can do it. So 12 years ago, I stopped spending money on anything animal-based and haven't done so since, and I take pride in that. And then you learn about everything else, the horrible treatment of animals, the health benefits, and that's a lot. That's important too.
Yeah, absolutely. And 12 years, that's awesome. Congratulations. Yeah. So what piece of advice would you have for someone who's transitioning to veganism?
I would say take it slow. I mean, when I started becoming vegan, I started taking out stuff like ranch for my diet. I used 1 or 2 weeks to take out ranch, 1 or 2 weeks to take out Wendy's, 1 or 2 weeks to take out McDonald's. I just kept crossing things off the list that I didn't like in my diet, and eventually it became vegan. And it probably took a year to do that. Take your time.
What made you transition to a vegan way of living?
I became vegan because I had high cholesterol, and I was put on medication and didn't want to take medication, so I just cold turkey became vegan.
And did your cholesterol go down?
Oh yes, it did.
Nice, congrats.
So I primarily went vegan for the animals. I think that it's really not necessary for us to eat meat or to eat dairy to actually live a very healthy and happy lifestyle. And also, bonus is it's great for your health, and another bonus is the environment.
Do you have a piece of advice for someone who's thinking about transitioning to vegan?
Think of it really as a transition, explore foods, find things that you like, and then find those ways of to just replace items one at a time.
Do you have a piece of advice for someone who's thinking about going vegan?
Yeah, I would say take small steps. You don't have to do it all at once. You can start over every day, and don't worry about making mistakes. When I went vegetarian, I made a bunch of mistakes, and then I just forgive myself and move on.
Love it. That's beautiful advice. Thank you so much.
If you go vegetarian, you feel better about yourself, and you feel less guilty sometimes. So yeah, helpful tip for you.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you so much for sharing that, Jaden. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
What's your name?
My name is Bria.
And what made you decide to eat less meat?
'Cause it makes you feel a little better and it makes you stronger and healthier.
Ooh, I like that, yes. Do you have a piece of advice for someone who's maybe trying to eat a little bit less meat?
You get a lot more good things from vegetables and fruits.
Yes, I like that. What are some of your favorite foods?
Zucchini and vegan sushi.
Ooh, yes, those are so good.
Until next time, keep thriving.